Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I think we might have lost some of the last contingent to the pub, and I suppose they did earn it because it was a very fine session of poetry in the last reading, but it's so great to still have some lovely heads in the room for this reading because I know it's going to be great. We have two wonderful readers, Alejandro Murguía, who's coming to us from San Francisco, and Lauren O'Donovan, who we have here in the room. So I'm going to say as well that this particular reading is supported by Cork City Council because it's about our twin city exchange. So Cork is twinned with San Francisco. I don't know which one is cooler. We could maybe arm wrestle for that title. But what we do know is poetry is alive very much in both cities, which is a good thing. So I'm going to introduce Alejandro first. Alejandro Murguía is 2 times winner of the American Book Prize. He has many collections. I'm not going to tell you all of them because they're in the program. They were all published with City Lights, and so prolific that he was named the Poet Laureate of San Francisco from 2013 to 2017. So that's very impressive indeed. And I guess also I will say that he is currently curating an anthology of Mayan poetry, which really sounds great. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So without further ado, Alejandro, take us away.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. But you left out that I also make really good colcannon and cham, that Irish breakfast with potatoes. I'm famous for how I prepare potatoes. So, and I want to thank all the organizers of this festival. I know you've been having the festival for a long time, and I like the international scope, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it and share my work with you. I am coming from the Mission District in San Francisco, and San Francisco is on unceded Ohlone Ramaytush land, which is the land of the Native Americans. And I want to acknowledge that that's where I'm reading from. I'm going to start my reading. You know, San Francisco is known as the city of poets, the Beats, for example. But the poet that gave the Beats their name is often forgotten or ignored. His name is Bob Kaufman. He's an African-American poet. And I guess you can compare him to like being to the Beats what Brian Jones was to the Rolling Stones. And so I'm going to start this first poem. The Eyes of the Poet for Bob Kaufman. Corrugated iron panels stamped on your forehead, your eyes, 2 pennies rattling in a blind man's cup. Yet once the hippest beat on the scene of New York tenement parties, later tales of Tangiers, white slavery, amphetamine dreams, snow in August, and jazz on your breakfast plate, and jailhouse riffs etched with a silver razor, and somehow a busted nose. And then named Prince of Poetry, a black-rimmed bow sailing a bamboo raft into exile and silence, a baby Buddha perched on your shoulders, blowing a saxophone dirge down your river Nile. And I forgot to mention that during the time that I knew Bob Kaufman in North Beach, he was just coming out of a 10-year Buddhist vow of silence in protest to the Vietnam War. So for 10 years, he did not speak a word. And I know many politicians that wish would take a 10-year vow of silence. So San Francisco, of course, is an international city and also sort of the launching ground of many technology companies. But in the process, San Francisco has also changed. Gentrification, for example, which is a worldwide phenomena. And even in San Francisco, if you visit, you can see that the southern part of the city is kind of run down and homeless camps and potholes big enough to swallow a car. And then when you cross over to the north side of the city, everything is clean and manicured. And so when you visit San Francisco, you might get the feeling that you're in Silicon City. Well, they evicted Mia from her storefront on Valencia. Then they burned down the apartments on 22nd Street. The good die young, and isn't it a pity? But the beat goes on in Silicon City. You're a stranger now in your hometown with strange faces on once familiar streets and strange shadows at 4 o'clock and cops, strangers on a strange beat. And the days and nights are mostly gritty, but hey, it's okay. You're hanging in Silicon City. So I've been told that everything that rises must fall, and that the wicked shall be denied. But nowadays, you don't know who to trust. And watch out, you don't get run over by a Google bus. It bees that way, all down and dirty in the heartless heart of Silicon City. Now, everybody knows the center cannot hold, but prophecy is cheap and politicians are shifty. So baby, get your high heel sneakers and your black beret on, because tonight we fight the power in Silicon City. Now, back in San Francisco, before COVID hit and shut everything down, at poetry readings, people would not applaud. Instead, they would throw money. And euros don't hurt. So, everybody believes and thinks that there were only Jewish people in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, and they had to wear a yellow Star of David. But there were also gays in those concentration camps, and they had to wear a pink triangle, which is you see in the Castro neighborhood of San Francisco. But the political prisoners, those that were dissidents, socialists, communists, poets, artists, they had to wear a red triangle to signify they were political prisoners. Now, the longest held political prisoner in the world is not in China, and he's not in Russia. The longest held political prisoner in the world is right here in the United States, and it's a Native American, wouldn't you know it, by the name of Leonard Peltier, who back in the mid-70s was framed by the FBI, the same FBI that harassed Martin Luther King, that assassinated Fred Hampton in his sleep in a Chicago bed. And although everyone agrees now, including the FBI and those that prosecuted him, that the trial was rigged, that the evidence was cooked, that the FBI intimidated witnesses and messed with the evidence, the last 4 presidents of the United States have had his clemency pardon papers on their desk, including the current president, Joseph Biden, and they all refuse to release a Native American who was innocent of any crimes. Instead, in our country, we have the albino baboon of Mar-a-Lago, who has 95 felony charges against him running for president. So it seems that it's true what the Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano wrote, that we seem to be living in a Alice in Wonderland world, an upside down world. El mundo al revés. It's a strange world we're living here, where fat buzzards perch on trees, while good food lies on the ground, and all around, children in their bare feet. It's a strange world we're living here. There's some hard knocks on this block, where everywhere you look, there's heavily armed cops and a body or two, like Sean Monterosa or Breonna Taylor, had never had a chance to scream, stop. There's some hard knocks on my block. Es el mundo al revés, donde van corriendo los peces y los pajaritos nadan y los gatos pardos ladran, pues es el mundo al revés. It's a strange scene on this street where you're taught to lie and cheat, but in the end, it doesn't matter who you are. You're still just another piece of meat, because it's a strange scene on North Main Street. It's a rotten world they're selling here, where no one looks you in the eye, and the budget goes for hate and war and fear. So the best thing is not to buy anything, because it's a corrupt world they're selling here. Es el mundo al revés, donde van corriendo los peces y los pajaritos nadan y los gatos pardos ladran. Pues así es en este pinche mundo al revés. So, being from California, people don't realize this, that California is in fact part of Latin America. It has nothing to do with the 13 colonies or anything like that. That's why San Francisco is in Spanish, as are the other cities, Los Angeles, Santa Bárbara, San José. Entonces, lo que pasa conmigo es que a veces me viene el poema en español y a veces el poema me viene en inglés y a veces me viene bilingüe, así en las dos lenguas, como este último poema. Pero aparte de eso, yo no sé de dónde viene el poema, como es un misterio para mí, como que me cae del cielo. ¿Ah? And so, for those of you that are linguistically challenged, what I said was, I hope the Cork City Football Club wins the Premier League this year championship. It just takes longer to say it in Spanish. Entonces, voy a leer este poema en español porque me vino en español. Aquí, con tu memoria. Hoy me senté pensativo mirando al mar, atado como prisionero a otro día enroscado, hecho caracol, por todo lo fecundo que eres en esta tierra y este mar. El chillido de las gaviotas, las nubes como reflexión del agua, el cielo como tu caricia ese día de junio del cual ha quedado solo este momento, estos segundos donde surges otra vez del mar, tu traje de baño, silueta de pura espuma, espléndida, joven, sirena de brazos bronceados, pelo color de arena quemada, mujer hecha de embrujos, de flores acuáticas, de tierra, montaña, hierbas, que ahora son poema, porque estuvimos juntos esa tarde y los dos fuimos hechos calendarios, donde se retornan siempre los días con sus mismos destinos, los mismos amores y enemigos de siempre. De todo eso, solo tú y yo quedamos, porque fuimos chorro de agua, música, el rubí de un beso cayendo hacia el fondo de un pozo, donde a través de los años nos miramos como éramos aquel día, jóvenes y enamorados del mundo entero. So, you know what I say? You're either a little bit Irish or a little bit Mexican. Now, in the Mission District, one night I was having dinner very late at night, about 10 o'clock at night. And this young boy, about 10 years old, came in and he was selling flowers. And that kind of sparked this poem. It's actually a short story from my collection of short stories, This War Called Love, also published by City Lights. Rose-colored dreams. What is Juanito doing this hour of night selling roses in the streets of La Mission? Wine-colored, blood-colored, and pink rosebuds wrapped in cellophane, stuffed in a plastic bucket, half his size. He walks in the restaurant thin as a churro. 10 years look like 30 stamped on his forehead. A strong wind could blow him to Daly City or Ocosingo, the mountainous Chiapas town of his birth. All the waitresses and regular customers, the soft-bellied ones and the lean ones, the hard-faced cab drivers, the norteño trios, know Juanito's face, his faded blue sweater, his Mayan profile like a clay pendant from Tonina, his cowlick in black mop of hair. Juan Coco Heredia, Juanito, as his mother calls him, should be home, asleep. You know the place, the apartment building on 17th Street, through the lobby door with busted lock, under the sign that says no loitering, past the odor of mildew that curdles your brain, up 3 floors of rickety stairs with broken handrails, down the hallway where gas cockroaches lie belly up below the broken window. Sweet home. In bed, actually the mattress on the floor he shares with his older sister, Juanito would dream of a baseball glove or the perfect tail for a kite. Dream a sandia paleta from Latin Freeze on 24th Street with the one seed always frozen near the bottom. But the family needs more than dreams. That's why Mama, 2 sisters, a baby, Juanito, and La Abuela have traveled by truck and bus to this 2-room battleground of survival. Right this minute, as Juanito treads Mission Street, Mama in the apartment curls over a singer's sewing machine, zigzagging threads fine as spider webs, running perfect seams down pants, stitching buttonholes and collars, late into the pale yellow hours of her seemingly endless nights. The 2 sisters, Dulce and Primavera, with fingers delicate as ballerinas, hand-stitched beads tiny as dewdrops, on dresses that will retail in Eunice Street boutiques for hundreds of dollars, of which they will receive 25. The baby will be crying in the cardboard crib, a cow fracking his sleep, and La Abuela, lost in dreams thick as cataracts, will be chanting Xochitl prayers to Mayan gods before an altar of beeswax candles, pink flower petals, and Pepsi-Cola bottles. The heavy palm incense unraveling in a perfumed string towards the water stain in the ceiling that looks like a map of Latin America. This isn't Mexico City. where Indian families wrapped in newspapers huddle in icy streets under the monument to the revolution. This isn't Tegucigalpa either, where worm-ravaged girls peddle chiclets on street corners. No, this is San Pancho, Califas, Aztlan, land of palm trees and skyscrapers, where there's dollars enough for cellular phones, sports cars, even mota by the trunkful, where a suitcase of cocaine is as easy to buy as a broken-stemmed rose from Juanito's white bucket. Oye, chavalo, how much for that handful of rosebuds? 4 elf-sized fingers go up. Juanito makes change for a 20 as fast as an abacus, returns his tiny fist clenched with crumpled bills. Gracias, he says, like a man. Every love-struck couple staring into each other's eyes, every loner occupied with a half-empty beer, even the waitress with tired legs waiting for the end of her shift, gets a visit from Juanito. Then, with bucket under his arm, he turns one last time to the faces above the steaming plates before he's out into the neon-lit street, leaving a trail of rose petals, dark as sacrificial hearts. You might see Juanito selling roses if you ever visit the Mission District in San Francisco. I'm going to read 2 more poems. You know, I don't always write just angry poems. Sometimes I write angry love poems. And although I often get a request to read this poem, I've never read it in San Francisco to protect the guilty. So I guess it's okay to read it to a foreign audience. Persuasion. And this will be coming out next year in a limited edition with artwork by my friend Sal Garcia, who does artwork for Carlos Santana. That book is called The Jazz Suite. And this is one of the poems. Persuasion. All the reasons why. Because it had to be you, it could only be me. Because it's one of those crazy things. Because you ask the right question. Because your pyramid and cigarette. Porque amor indio chula. Porque sos Sochi. Because your splendid legs. Porque te pones como gata. Because your sheer black stockings. Because I dress you and undress you. Porque te apodo la consentida. Pues que guacharruca chicano style. Porque soy del barrio, porque eres mi huiza, porque te dicen la más chingona, porque eres mi historia y mi destino, porque sos mi frente de guerra, porque serás mi Celaya, porque me duele saber que fuiste ajena, porque siempre serás mía, because to love this way is dangerous and could make any man bitter, porque soy tu amargura, porque eres doña dulzura, because you have the sassiest walk I've ever seen, because your red stiletto heels, because your corsets and eyes, because you whisper my name, because I bloom like an orchid in your mouth, porque sabes a agua de coco, because you're my tropic of desire, because you're a Coptic manuscript I must decipher, because I decipher you, because my hat hurts when I think of you. Porque te quiero verde, verde, verde. Because your words are like stones. Because you slash the accent of my name. Because you're midnight sun and August snow. Roses in December. Because in spite of everything, you read my steamy letters. Because you do anything. Anything. Even murder, you say. Because you make me laugh, because you're the nails in the feet of painting, because eres el último bolero de mi última parranda, porque así lo quiero, así me gusta, porque me da la chingada gana, porque no me parezco a nadie, porque eres mi virgen y mi santa, porque eres la mera mera, la pura neta, because you're mine and I know it, porque eres película mexicana, porque soy tan melodramático, because you put up with me, because yo no sé por qué, porque a pesar de todo me perdonas mis pecados, me perdonas todos mis pecados, because you step inside the square ring with me, because you fight me with marks and lingerie, because I don't know who will win, because you're ritual and magic, luz y sombra, sol y luna, because I understand you, because you're a mystery I can't unravel, because our contradictions unite us, because nuestra cosa es más que una locura, because you are the last woman for me in this life, because I want it this way, because I don't give a damn, because nothing can separate us, because we'll always be apart, because I could never describe it to you, because you're everything I want, because I'll never have you, because such is life, así es la vida, that's just how it is, porque el destino lo quiso así, porque piensa en mí como pienso en ti, porque hoy y mañana, ayer y siempre, because the future is almost gone, because our time is so brief and absence is so long, because it's now or never, without regrets, always and forever. Pues, baby, así es. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to share my work. This last poem is from a particular part of the Mission District where poets used to hang out. The poem starts by naming three of them. In particular, Oscar Zeta Acosta, who wrote one of the great novels of United States literature, The Revolt of the Cockroach People. And he wrote it in the Hotel Royan, the Mission's finest. And if you don't know where the Mission District is located, I cannot help you. 16th and Valencia. I saw Jack Michelin on the corner of 16th and Valencia reciting Skinny Dynamite, and he was angry. And the next day he was dead on the last BART train to Concord, and maybe that's why he was angry. And I met Harold Norse shuffling around in a beaten world, his pockets stuffed with poems only hipsters read. It's a cesspool out here, he sighed before returning to his room in the Albion Hotel, where angels honeycomb the walls with dreams and the rent is paid with angry poems. And I heard Oscar Zeta Acosta's brown buffalo footsteps pounding the Valencia corridor, and he was shouting poetry at the sick junkies nodding with their wasted whores in the lobby of the Hotel Royan, the Mission's finest, and even the furniture was angry. And I joined the waiters at the bus stop, the waitresses, the norteño trios, the flower sellers, the blind guitarist wailing boleros at a purple sky, the shirtless vagrant vagabond ranting at a parking meter, the spray paint visionary setting fire to the word. And I knew this was the last call. We were tired of living from the scraps of others. We were tired of dying for our own chunk of nothing. And I saw this barrio as a freight train, a crazy Mexican bus careening out of control, a mutiny aboard a battleship, and every porthole filled with anger. And we were going to stay angry, and we were not leaving, not ever leaving. El corazón del corazón de la misión. El camino real ends here, baby. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. That was powerful. Thank you for your anger. I was with friends recently, and we were talking about healthy anger, and we need more of that. We need to express it and to sit with it and to move on from it, I suppose. But what a great reading! It's so full of color, struggle, resistance, resilience. And I am linguistically challenged. Poor me. But it's so lovely to hear another language and not to have to get the translation, actually, because I think the mystery of another language is something very beautiful. And you can often get a sense of what's being said without knowing what's being said. So thank you for honoring your language and not feeling the need to translate. So I'm going to move on now to Lauren O'Donovan. Am I too close? Thanks. So Lauren O'Donovan is one of our own, really. We're definitely claiming her. You know, she's a Cork girl, and she has been a supporter of Ovale for a long time. She comes to our monthly gatherings and is a very supportive writer herself. She's always really lovely with all the other writers in the room. And she is indeed a founder of Lime Square Poets, which is a very supportive group also. And she's an editor with Howl, which is a great journal here in Cork that is championing new Irish voices. So, you know, she's a very generous writer and also a very talented writer. So this year she won the coveted Patrick Kavanagh Award and also the Court Prize for Poetry. So, you know, I have no right to feel proud of you because you did it all by yourself, but like, well done, and get up here and share your poems. Lauren O'Donovan.
Remember when we lived at Summerhill South, in that bungalow with yellow walls and concrete floors the landlord dug up to trace a leak, opening the arteries of the house and creating canals for us to leap over on the way to the toilet at 2 a.m. That first night in our room, we couldn't get to sleep because of people stumbling home from pubs, leaning on each other or into arguments until the buses rose at dawn, rumbling out of the depot and shaking our single-pane windows in the frame. It was in that house I quit my job by text at 9 a.m. from bed, the job my dad got me at CIT, teaching English to Spanish students. The same house that Frankie sold hash from, and we all smoked too much to keep our ghosts quiet. The house where we broke up for the first time at Halloween on the way home from Freak Scene, after that American girl from college vomited green tequila all over the dance floor. But the next day, neither of us could recall what was said, only how we make each other feel. And remember, about a year after we moved out, we met those lads in the club who invited us back to their gaff, but it turned out it was our house at Summerhill South, except the floor was fixed under soft, thick carpets, the walls repainted white, and our bedroom, now a brand new living room, with a couch that didn't eat you or have notch burns on its arms. They welcomed us in, those lads who were living our life without realizing. But as I sat in our old bedroom, the party pulsing. I couldn't breathe, and my stomach started swinging. So I scrambled over all the strange legs and burst out the front door. You followed, glowing phone in hand, ready to call a taxi, saying, "Do you want to go home?" Thank you so much, you're very kind. I just want to say thank you so much to Rosie for that gorgeous introduction, the best I've ever had, the #1 award. And thank you so much to Ovail for this wonderful opportunity, to Ovail who's given me so many opportunities. In fact, you're single-handedly running the content on my social media at this point, so thank you very much. And thank you to everyone in the audience for sticking it out. It has been a long day of poetic wonders. And the call of the pub is strong, so I really appreciate you all being here, and to anyone who's listening online as well. I'm reading from my collection, Taxidermy Heart, with a lot of luck, will hopefully be published in 2024. It's a bunch of memory poems, so let's get locked and loaded. To Mrs. Brown, my 5th-year biology teacher, I still remember how you would burst into a drowsy classroom with mud on your boots and hands full of ferns, so fresh they dripped spiders and dew. You told us to trace our fingertips along the sporangium underneath a leaf, and explained how each tiny spore would sail on rain and find its own way to new soil where it would grow strong despite the struggle. And I did struggle, but not in your class. Even the girls who smacked chewing gum, wore makeup, and rolled their skirts up into belts listened when you demonstrated how to hold the scalpel and carefully slice through layers of sclera, choroid, nerves, and ligaments into the thick jelly of a cow's eye, explaining that vision occurs in the brain, whereas the eye is an organ of innocent parts, incapable of casting judgment. You were my teacher for a single year before my mom moved me to a new school. I swapped my uniform for jeans and traded the sneers of girls I'd known since Montessori for the empty smiles of almost women and an ache for oblivious teenage boys. Just 1 year, but when I studied for my exams, I saw mud splatters on the page and dewdrops, and as I drew and redrew diagrams, the structure of the eye, the life cycle of the fern. This poem is a found poem from graffiti in a single women's bathroom up at UCC. It's still there, so if you're a woman and you're at UCC, you can go and view this in real life. It's called Latrina Vox, Voices of the Toilet. Collage is lonely. Any League of Legends players? This is the sign you asked for. My parents think nothing is good enough. Up the Ra. I'm 29 and in love with a woman. For the first time, I know who I am. Birds aren't real. Don't vote the same pricks back in on Feb 8th. I have an eating disorder. I just want to feel beautiful. Birdwatchers everywhere are shook. Ross Mulcahy is hung like a horse. Repeal. My boyfriend says he loves me and I'm scared. I don't understand why he would. Any bags? My boyfriend says he loves me, but would find me more sexually attractive if I were thinner. Love yourself first, you are yours. Tomato. Fuck him, then leave him. I broke up with him. Yay. I cheated on my boyfriend and now I'm pregnant. We are not retreating, just advancing in reverse. And the bullying continues in college. Any hash on tick? Any bags? I fuck up everything. YOLO with a line through. You live every day, you only die once. Why can't my lonely ass find a decent man? Beyonce is ruining music. I might be pregnant and the fellas from Kerry, 50-50 is gonna be a leprechaun. Bullying is in your head. Change your attitude. Coronavirus, more dangerous than we're being told. Nobody knows I'm trans, but I'm still terrified using the ladies. I'm falling in love with my friend, but I can't tell her. Yes, you are. You are enough. Embrace your weirdness. Penis. I love Beyonce. This is your bathroom, and anyone who thinks otherwise can feck off. Bring flowers of the rarest. I remember the churches, the Church of the Ascension, St. Vincent's Church, St. Augustine's Church, St. Mary's Church. I remember her and me. I remember the vast church with high-reaching arches. I counted panes of stained glass windows, traced the thick lead cames with my mind, the smell of old hymns, the smell of varnished pews, the smell of flowers, the taste of secrets. At Christmas, we wait in a queue for the nativity scene, painted stone characters, sheep, donkey, angel, Mary, Jesus, Joseph, Granny. She would take a small clump of manger hay, dispersed strand by strand to keep us safe. The dumb thing is to keep it in your wallet. I have one in my wallet. My mom carries on the tradition. She misses her mom. I miss my mom, even though she has not died yet. Granny's mom died by hemorrhage during labor when Granny was just a girl. The baby was buried in the coffin by her feet. Granny suffered from depression and was hard on herself. My mom suffers from depression and is hard on herself. I suffer from depression and I am hard on myself. Apples and trees, apples and eaves. Safe in the church, counting pains, tracing cames, holding her soft and spotted, wrinkled hand. I sat next to her, counting glass and flowers while they buried babies. Baby booties lined the walk to the last Magdalene laundry on Sean McDermott Street. Hundreds and hundreds of empty baby shoes, never worn. Silence. We walked in silence. We cried in silence. The Pope arrived in Dublin. These next few are about parenthood, which is the most amazing and amazingly difficult experience I've ever had in my life. The day you were born. We drove along the harbour road where snow fell as softly as a million feathers molted by a god bird. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Labour was slow and I was high on the hormones of birth. The sleeping city looked small and new, swaddled in still ripples of white. Our headlights illuminated each flake as if the sky had shed a path of frozen stars for us to follow. I wish I could be back in that moment, gliding through a niveous haze, intoxicated with the promise of you. about to see your face for the first time, bring you to my inexperienced breast. I don't remember much else until you were naked and wet on my chest, your skin streaked white with vernix, like feathers oiled from the egg. And I couldn't stop crying and laughing, laughing and crying. Ingredients. On a tear-soaked floor under rage-splattered walls, I set her down in a 1,000-square-foot glass prison. First, I give her stacking spoons, blue nesting cups, a mixing bowl, sugar, water, flour, butter. She redecorates the kitchen, while I make nut bars and bake scones in heart-shaped silicone molds. Then she's 2, and we're both on the floor, greasing tins, cracking eggs. Her hands are miniatures of mine. Together with one spoon, we stir until she stomps, me do. I watch her batter-freckled face, furious with concentration, stirring, pouring, powdering, while my trembling fingers smear clots of dough and broken shells across my face, my neck, my breasts, my bird bone ribs. You're very kind, but you'd be very tired from clapping, but I appreciate it. Involuntary admission. A breast pump stands in the corner of my psychiatric hospital room, next to a locked chipboard wardrobe. Somewhere a nurse guards the key, along with answers to the questions they keep asking. What date is it today? The pump is 4 feet high with long, thin tubes wrapped around like limp snakes. One tube mouth rests on the base, a plastic starfish on wheels transported from an office chair, looking like any moment the pump will get up, brush its hair, put on a skirt, go to work. It hums, sucking at my shriveled breasts while I nurse its plastic cups. I am a cow in an automated milking shed, except without the swollen udders. Nothing is expressed except a few slow drops, barely bigger than a bead of nectar in a fuchsia flower, only enough to fill a small spoon, or the seed inside a fat grape, or a pair of those concave hollows contacts come in. I give up pumping. Sitting on the strange bed that's dressed up in my bedclothes, I think about other tiny things this much milk could fill, and wonder how long I've been feeding her nothing. And she flew. With plastic teardrops on soft fingertips, we hot glue multicolored craft feathers to a cutout frame. I stick and she snips semi-plumes to lay, each slightly longer, until it is time for one's washed and dried, snowy seagull contour and flight feathers we collected together at low tide, along with mottled plumes from the plover. Nearly there, we bend them in a gentle curve to look like the wings of a real bird, and use glitter duct tape, guided by pencil marks, to attach braided straps to matboard. She raises one arm up and then the other. Unaware, I fasten wings on my child's shoulders. These next few are about that universal experience that binds us all together, that of the loss of a parent and grief. That moment that divides your life. At 3 a.m., the phone rings. My hands answer without me. I am asleep and don't wake until my body is sat up in the still warm bed, begging, what? To the intangible voice that has just tore my life into before and after that phone call. A black hole opens at the spot where my ribs stop and my gut starts, and it sucks and sucks with a furious hunger, swallowing whole the benevolent world of before. After that phone call, my husband asks, "What's wrong?" And that's when I say it out loud for the first time, making real by accident what, if I had only gone straight back to sleep, might have all been just a dream. After that phone call, he searches for flights on the floor with a laptop on his knees, while I lie next to him as flat as roadkill. Because I have lost the strength to disagree with gravity, and the only breathable air left in the room is in an inch-thick layer above the beige carpet. After that phone call, he does all the talking as friends drive us to the airport, while I stare out the window and try to stop a panic attack by identifying over and over 5 things I see, 4 things I feel, 3 things I hear, 2 things I taste, 1 thing I smell. After that phone call, he presses his head against mine, sandwiching my wet face between his palm and cheek, while the black hole yawns and threatens to engulf the plane, the sky, the earth, the universe, everything and us. After that phone call, the plane lands, and all I can remember from the next month are flashes of disconnected images, like a news montage reporting on a freak disaster that happened in the country of just one family. Before that phone call, I was a child. Thank you. The scene on repeat in my mind for the past 10 years. My father stares at the seat beside him where his wife used to sit. He is alone in the kitchen, perched on one of 6 chrome and leather stools, nested around an island of white marble shot through with charcoal lightning. A full ashtray and mug rest in front of him. Another cigarette burns to filter between his stained fingers. The window above the sink is open wide, its frame alive with twitching, dull-bodied insects. My father drains his cold tea down to brown clots, takes an unsteady breath, holds it in. He rubs the sockets of bloodshot eyes with the fat backs of arthritic knuckles. He picks up a pen, writes a short note on a yellow post-it, and sticks it to his wallet, arranged beside his phone, his keys. My father reaches for his phone, but not to call or text me. He holds the power button for 3 seconds before placing it back in line, screen side down. He glances at the paintings of Cork and Cove, hung just last year to remind them of home. Then, suddenly, he stands and walks out the back door, slides it shut, leaves it unlocked, lifts his head to search the stars, bright as they can only be in the vast country dark, until he finds the thin light of a crescent moon. My father gazes for a moment before he walks to the whitewashed brick shed, gravel crunching underneath each step. Once inside, he looks for the blue polypropylene rope once used to lift slate tiles up to the new roof. He finds it on the floor between tins of paint, behind stacked cardboard boxes still unpacked. He slings the rope over the strongest beam, secures it with a slipped overhand knot. He learned how to tie 50 years previous when he was an apprentice boy in the shipyard, and every morning the sun burst out of the water like a shooting star in reverse. Thanks very much. I only have 2 poems left for you, but that's a sneaky statement because one of them is a sequence. So the collection is a little bit all over the place, so I thought to myself it would be a cheat to bring it all together with the sequence of sonnets. It's called An Ordinary Crown, 1. Dad builds a kitchen from a puzzle of wood, cut in curves and sharp angles, obscure shapes until a drill roars and this piece attaches to that corner and a cabinet or drawer unfolds. I hover in the doorway, looking up at sawdust specked arms as thick as my torso, a mustache skewed in thought, dark like my thick black hair, hazel eyes a fleck more green than my brown. I want my hands to grow as sure as his, able to press life into plastered walls and loose pipes. I ask to help, but after a token bang of a hammer or assisted zip of the drill, I'm sent away, alone, outside in my crimson peacoat where I perch on the fence and pluck leaves from the hedge. 2. On the fence, plucking leaves from the hedge, my feet tap dance in air. Dad smokes a cigarette, leans back against where wooden rails meet the concrete estate wall. He would hold my hand, lead me up and down that wall with all the patience of a safety net, until balancing was another thing I didn't need him for. Drenched in orange lamplight, we wait on the quiet street for my other parents. Dad blows a smoke ring that circles the moon, tells me soon we will be together again, but until then, when I miss him, I should look up at the clouds, the sun or her evening cousin, as there is only ever one sky, the same sky he waits under until it's time for me to come home. 3. Dad looks up as he waits for me to come home, watches planes circle like prey birds ready to attack the landing strip. He spots a red leaf inscribed on a distant rudder, wonders, is it me? Wonders what if he had boarded that one-way flight back when his hair brushed the waistband of his bell-bottoms, before Mom was late and they swapped dreams for a quick wedding. He greets me at arrivals, leads us to our first stop, Lennox's, for the chipper food I missed so much. I can still hear his voice, bright with possibility, for the ruined cottage they just closed on in Kerry. Still see him, an Irish Buddha on a plastic chair, palms wide, his round stomach, his pink cheeks. 4. Hands entwined on her tiny stomach, pink cheeks yet to turn yellow from jaundice, she rests on my bare chest, skin to skin. The sour tang of the womb is her first perfume, guides her as she begins to seek newly browned nipples with an open mouth, unsteady body jerking side to side as she burrows into me. My hand cradles her soft head, brings her to my breast to end the short drought of her first hour. As she suckles, I think about my birth, lifted from a 20-centimeter incision in the abdomen of my mother, wrapped up and placed in the arms of my father. His biggest boast was that he saw me first, that I held his thumb tightly in my rosebud fist. 5. Dad holds the list tightly in a white-knuckled fist, the other hand pushing a shallow, widower-sized trolley through Duns. In 60 years, it's the first time he's had to select and buy all the supplies a home needs to keep living. His hand shakes as he places the sugar in the basket, lifting out a slice pan to secure the bag between the eggs, the butter, the sausages. I suggest vegetables. He says he's too old to start eating like a rabbit now. On the drive home from a visit to my father's grave, I stop in Duns to buy nappies and milk. The automatic doors open up like a time machine. They rip away the calluses of years, and the clock stops as I see my father wandering the aisles, lost. 6, nearly there. I wander the corridors of the psych ward, lost in a manic storm of urgent thoughts, alternately sinking, then soaring through kaleidoscopic swells of emotion. Suddenly I stop and stare at my father's name on a patient's door. It means he's here, watching over me, just like he was with me, dancing on the balcony, in the rain, before the police came to bring me down and forcefully escort me to hospital. The police came too late for my father. He was already cold, limp and dangling from the roof of the shed, an old polypropylene rope tight around his neck. They eased him down. 3 uniformed officers laid him out under the bedroom window of his newly built house. 7. Beneath the crumbling window openings of their new tumble-down cottage, Dad and stepmom pitch a 2-man tent, cook dinner on a camp stove. They look up at the Milky Way through a wound in the roof, astonished at the magic of the country dark sky. Over bites of buttered bread and hot black sausages, sweet with ketchup, they explore potential futures, discuss construction plans, review building supplies. When I visit a year later, the cottage is transformed from a ruin into a blank canvas. Stepmom offers me tea and biscuits, while Dad arranges boards and planks, cut in curves and sharp angles, in neat rows, stacked piles. An ordinary God about to create life from a puzzle of wood. Now, so we're on to the last poem, and I would like to tell you it was more cheerful than what's gone before, but that would be a lie. So sorry about that. But look, here we go, we're nearly there. This is probably the closest thing I've ever come to writing a love poem, and it's about my dog, so I'm not sure what that says about me, but taxidermy heart. When my dog dies, I will cut beneath his chin and draw down to his abdomen. I will open him, separating layers of fat and fascia until I find cold viscera inside. I will reach in, pluck out his heart to cradle in my cupped hands the same way I held his whole body to my chest the day we met. I will strip his muscles, kiss each fibrous strand that sped him across fields through forest. I will print his eyes in plastic, one iris bright blue, the other half eclipsed by a chestnut moon. I will thoroughly flesh his hide, removing every speck that gave him warmth. I will turn out his lids, his lips, his ears, and with a soft towel absorb his last drops of slow blood. I will apply a coat of canning salt on his hide laid flat, wet side up. I will whisper all his names as I rub the salt in circles. I will roll his skin, hang it, dry it, tan it, stretch it, howl with it. I will drape it on a cushioned mannequin, pin it tight to his new body, and lock stitch an invisible seam. I will groom his fur, trim his ruff and tail, and then I will curl him like a fox and settle him on his bed in the living room, one eye open in a slit, one ear half cocked as if he has woken up just enough to notice me and now will go back to sleep. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Lauren. That was really very moving. I was fighting my weepies there for a bit. The thing that's always struck me about you is your ability to kind of unfold what is deeply personal and difficult, and to share that, your vulnerability. I'm so grateful for your vulnerability and bravery, and you're so observant as well in those moments that are so difficult, and your ability to like bring them to life in such a vivid way is powerful. Thank you. So now I have two questions, and I've been kind of thinking about them. One is a little bit serious, I suppose, and one of them is a bit more playful. So like I think poets, we like to write to help us deal with things or to address things, or, to raise a voice where a voice needs to be raised, which is all very valid. But I was scrolling through Facebook there last week, and we all know the difficulties that are happening in the Middle East. And there was a post from, I think it was Light on Palestine, and it said, "We don't want your shit poetry. We want your action. We need more than your shit poetry," basically. Not that anybody here has shit poetry. But I suppose my question is, when poetry fails, what do you do? What other things do you do in your life that make a difference, or that you hope can make a difference in trying times? And I'll go to you first, Alejandro, if you wouldn't mind answering first. If you could unmute yourself.
Thanks for that question. I think it's a very important question, and it raises, like, what is the role of poetry in our world? And I always like to paraphrase the great Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano, who says, "To think that poetry can change the world is absurd, but to think that the world can be changed without poetry is equally absurd. So the best thing to do, I think, is to write about those things that matter to you. And if Palestine and what's going on there matters, then write about that. But also, I think it's important to read those poets, the Palestinian poets, for example, the Israeli poets that stand in resistance, right? So that we understand what that world is like. And if I may, here's a Palestinian poet that I'm reading recently. Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Mossab Abu Toha, published by City Lights Books. And in fact, Mossab was abducted a few days ago by the Israeli Defense Forces because he lives in Gaza, and he was walking because they have to walk from the northern part of Gaza to the southern part of Gaza. It's kind of like the Trail of Tears that the Cherokee Nation was forced to do here in our own country, right? And he was abducted as he was walking. And what struck me most about his abduction, he was holding the hand of his 3-year-old daughter. And when they abducted him, they left his daughter there on the road. And to me, it's like, seems a little bit inhuman and abuse of a child to leave a 3-year-old at the side of the road. I don't care what your cause is, right? And so it seems like we could pay attention to the poets of that world and see what their experiences is like.
Thank you for your answer, Alejandro. Lauren, would you like to come up and speak to the question?
Thanks, Alejandro. That was so beautiful and articulate, and it was exactly word for word what I was also going to say. So now I'm a bit caught off guard, but I mean, the long and short of it is I don't think I have a good answer. The reason that I write poetry is because all else has failed, and like, here we are, you know? But no, with the horrors of the world, what can we do but, you know, do what we can and hold the ones that we love and, you know, read more. And like, what is poetry but just, you know, a small moment that hopefully will connect at some point with one other person, creating this mystical connection from one mind to another mind, one heart from another heart in those moments. So yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. Don't run away just yet. So my next question is a bit more playful. So I was thinking about Cork and San Francisco, and what do they have in common? Hills. Lots of hills. In Cork, you have to go up a hill to go down a hill, and that's just the way of it. And what I know of San Francisco is pretty much the same. So what I'd like you to answer for me now is, how do you climb a poem?
Okay, Lauren could go first.
Thanks so much, Rosie, for these like lovely questions that we did not get beforehand, so there was no chance to prepare. But I suppose, like, literally, how do you climb a poem? But like, letter by letter, you know, vowel by vowel, consonant after consonant, until you're at the top and feeling everything. And one thing you forgot that San Francisco and Ireland both have in common are giant tiger seagulls. They're absolutely vicious and enormous. My husband was once at the pier in San Francisco eating an ice cream, and then caw, a seagull swoops down, grabs the ice cream out of his hand, flies over the bay, and drops it into the ocean. So I don't think that really answers your question, but there's a fun anecdote for you. Yeah.
That's okay. It was a strange question, to be fair. Alejandro, would you like to shoot from the breeze on how you might climb a poem?
Well, I think it was lucky that Lauren's husband wasn't snatched by the seagull and dropped off into the middle of the ocean. But I guess metaphorically speaking, and I don't know if Cork has trolley cars the way San Francisco does, right? No trolley cars. So then, metaphorically speaking, a poem climbs perhaps on a trolley car to reach not just the top of the hill, right? But to reach perhaps somewhere beyond the hill and perhaps reach somewhere we don't know yet when we first get on board the trolley as a poem. And that's the point perhaps of the poem and the trolley ride, to discover what it is that we need to say and want to say and is deeply buried in our hearts. So the trolley and the climbing as a metaphor, I think, is perfect in that sense.
Top marks. Yeah, I was being pure cheeky with that question, not really knowing where it would go, but I now know why I asked it, because your answer was perfect. Thank you so much, Alejandro and Lauren. We'll leave it there for tonight. Yeah, have a lovely evening or day. What time of day is it, or night with you?
It's about 2:45 p.m. But I would like to maybe, if possible, Lauren, get a question from the audience. Do we have time for that, or is it time to go to the pub?
Sure, we can do that. Does anybody in the audience have a question?
Time to go to the pub.
Is it time to go to the pub, is one question we have there.
We have pubs here too.
I don't know, about 3 o'clock in the daytime, you might, I don't know, might not be appropriate.
Well, maybe somebody has some answers.
Well, we have nobody asking any questions
Okay.
in the, so.
All right. Well, again, it's been a privilege to share my work with you.
Hold on, we do, we have one.
Okay.
About the jazz, in some of his poems, and how that influenced his work. Is music featuring a lot in his work, and does it influence his poems?
Okay, so Roisin Leggett-Bowen, another poet in the room, she is interested in you talked about jazz and music, and she wonders, does music influence you and your work?
Very much so, right? I often pattern a poem after a particular group that I enjoy, or a particular group that I'm listening to. So, for example, the last poem that I read, 16th in Valencia, the shift in the middle of the poem is actually inspired by the great Cuban band, Los Ban Ban. That's B-A-N, B-A-N, the best musical group to come out of the Americas, I think, in the past 20 or 30 years. It's a Cuban group. And so I listened to the rhythms, how they change the rhythms, their language. So no, I think I personally am very much influenced by music in my own writing. Absolutely. Including the Rolling Stones when I was very young.
Thank you, Alejandro. So we will leave it there, but we're going to have a big round of applause for Alejandro, Murguía, and Lauren O'Donovan.
Thank you all very much. You can throw money now.